This video presentation talks about the annotation of Rizal in Morga's chapter 8, which is about the narrative of the Philippine Islands and their natives. There are specific dress that the native of Luzon wore before the advent of the Spaniards inland. For native men, they wore clothes made of cangan fabric without collar, sewn in front with short sleeves, extending down to beyond the waist, some blue and some black, while the headmen used red ones which they called chininas, a colored blanket wrapped around the waist and between the legs. We don't know the origin of the word bahag, which means a rich colored cloth and quite often with gold stripes among the chiefs. In a certain province named Zambales, they shaved their heads closely from the middle to the forehead, with a large lock of loose hair on the back of the head, while the women wear sayas or dresses with sleeves called varo. The manner of wearing the hair and the long attire of the Visayans have an analogy to the coiffure and kimono of the Japanese. Their regular daily food is rice, crushed by wooden pilons or pounders, which is cooked and is then called morisqueta. Morisqueta is called in Filipino as kanin. They prefer to eat meat and fish, salt fish, which begins to decompose and smell. The fish that Morga mentions does not taste better when it is beginning to rot, and it is called bagoong. And all those who have eaten it and tasted it knows that it is not or ought not to be rotten. There are many fruit trees in the land such as santol, mabolo, tamarind, nangka or junk fruit, anonas, papayas, guava, and various kinds of oranges, citrus, and lemons, and about 10 or 12 varieties of bananas. Buseta and Bravo said that there are more than 57 species. In Visayas, there are certain islands where rich gold deposits and other minerals are to be found by the natives by washing and placer mining. However, after the Spaniards arrived in the islands, the natives didn't become so pressed upon mining, as they already become contented with what they had before. Jewelries and golds were inherited from their first parents in the bloodline, thus not making them to become greedy on the treasures they got. From Luzon, in the provinces of Cagayan, Ilocos, and Camarines, there are good mines that were developed. Discovering the place of the native Igorots, their place are good sources of minerals as well. The Igorots trade their unrefined golds to the people of Ilocos with pigs, rice, carabaos, blankets, and other necessities that they need. These gold trading experiences are also happening in the islands of Visayas, particularly in Butuan River in Cebu, and Mindanao, where a mine called Talibon is being improved. However, in the islands of Camarines, there are these so-called Ostia de Perlas, or mother of pearl, which was described by Rizal. There are also sea turtles around that are so large that their own shells are being sold in trading exchange between the Chinese, Portuguese, and other nationalities. Also, in the islands of Mindanao, in Butuan, the natives make profit out of selling wild or ribbed cats. Some were sold in the country in the cheapest prices. The cotton is another thing that is being sold to the Chinese nationals. In the same manner, clothes that are made of fiber and bananas that is called mandrinake are being sold. In addition to this, there has to be people doing the works. There are natives that are subject to Spanish encomenderos, which they rely on their mayor that rules over them. Some are laborers, some are mining gold, and some are good at trading from one province to another. In relation to the abundance of gold, the Indians were influenced to abandon the work in the mines in order to save them from frustrations. Also, Rizal annotated that tradings between the Igorot and other natives from Luzon, which involves exchange of rice, pigs, and carabaos to gold, was prohibited. Another thing that Rizal annotated was that it is right that the Igorots think that the Spaniards will get the golds from them due to their abundance of minerals and golds. So, they thought that it will be better if their golds will just be kept beneath the ground, instead of just keeping it inside their houses. The religion of the native people of Visayas was described as primitive. They have beliefs in which they worship what seems to be a dreadful and ferocious animal. Through idols and images that represents it, the natives prayed and gave offerings like sweet-smelling perfume, food, and fruits. They called these beings anitos. Rizal said the idols that were seen in Cebu was described as having a large face and four enormous teeth that looks like the fangs of a wild boar. It was mentioned that these idols are all covered with paint. The Tagalogs were said to have anitos for almost everything: mountains, planted fields, sea, home, and more. The idols made were not always terrifying beings, as there are some idols that resemble some malevolent genie. The anitos in their belief are the spirits of their family and ancestors, or the divine beings that they worship. But because of the new religious belief that missionaries introduced to the Filipinos, the anitos slowly devolved into some form of superstition. Although many prayed to the anitos, some of the natives revered the sun and the moon as divine beings. There were also some that worship a certain yellow bird that lives in the mountains. They call this deity Bathala. Rizal's annotation in this matter: the yellow bird probably did or did not exist. It is more or less how the Egyptians worshipped animals as deities. The tabernacles that were built near the seashore, Pigafetta mentioned that there were destroyed idols discovered inside it. The tabernacles were probably dedicated solely to the anitos, the spirit of their ancestors, as a resting place when spirits travel. On the other hand, the natives did not raise any temples dedicated to Bathalang Maykapal. They believed that their god has no need for any temple to live in, or sacrifices to be entertained with, as he was believed to be an incorruptible, just, and a wise god. The natives prayed and worshipped their respective gods, but they did not do these practices in temples. They worshipped and made offerings inside their own homes. The concept of priests or people that focused on religious ceremonies was not practiced, which is probably why the natives do not have temples or homes that are dedicated solely to religious activities. The people only have katalonas, which are said to be people with powers, but in truth, they only deceive people. They answered the people's concern with lies and superstition in exchange for whatever needs they wanted. The Catalones are also the ones who produce different kinds of medicine and witchcraft in order to pursue future events in various ways. Regarding the Catalonas, Rizal said that Catalonas are said to be ordinary people who are rich, well-dressed, and decorated with jewelry. They were not revered by everyone because the people considered them as those who takes advantage of their fellows' hard work. In this period of time, where other religions were not yet widely spread, the natives relied on omens and superstitions, but they did not practice human sacrifice. The natives' belief may be similar to that of Christian faith, where in both believe that there is life after death. They believed that those who were able to show bravery and perform daring deeds would be rewarded, and those that performed malicious actions would be punished. However, the people do not know where and why would this so-called Judgment Day occur. According to Rizal, the natives relied on superstitions and are heavily influenced by this. Although it was believed that they do not know where or why the afterlife and the Judgment Day occurs, some historians say that the natives do have a concept of the afterlife. Solad was for hell, and Kalwalhatian or Ulugan was for heaven. In Panay, they say that the blessed Visayan souls go to the Matias Mountains, where the Olympus and Elysia fields are located. According to Morga, throughout the islands, there were no kings and lords to rule the Indios. Instead, in every island and province, some important and outstanding principals, having their own followers and henchmen that forms barrios and families, obeyed and respected each other. Those principal men used to have friendship and relationship with each other, and sometimes even wars and differences with each other. According to Morga, there are two types of slaves. First is the Sagigili. They are the ones who had their own houses for their family apart from the house of their master, and who would come to the house from time to time to help in the tilling of the land and in harvesting, also to serve as crew members when their masters made sea voyages. The children of an aliping Sagigilid also served in the same manner. Second type is Namamahay. They are the ones who help in building the master's house and often serve as helpers when there are guests, and to serve there whenever their master needs them, without any rewards. The children and descendants of namamahay are also treated in the same way. The aliping sagigilid and namamahay are full-time but can be a half-time, part-time, or even one-fourth part of being a slave. This will only happen if one of the parents of the child was free and only if the child is the only one. With this, the child will be a half-time slave and only a half-free. But if the child is not the only one, the first child will inherit the position of the father as either bond or free. The second child will follow the status of the mother. If there are more siblings, the latter was half slave and half free. The children of these mixed parents became only a one-fourth part slaves, for being such children of a free father or mother and of a half slave. Based from the rules of slavery, these half or fourth part slaves, whether sagigilid or namamahay, serve their masters alternately, that is to serve for 1 moon and are free in the next moon, and so on.